So, you're looking for a little piece of heaven, and you want to come here to find it. It should be easy, shouldn't it? You want a place of your own that you can build on to have a little privacy and seclusion, some space around you, some peace and quiet. Should be simple, shouldn't it? Find that perfect piece of ground with the perfect conditions in the perfect location and get it at the perfect price, find the perfect builder and build a perfect home. Shouldn't be a big problem. You hire your builder and away you go. 1 year later, you're sitting on your back porch, you're sipping a tall glass of iced tea or maybe a steaming cup of coffee. You got your legs crossed, you're leaning back, you're looking out at your view of the mountains. Down the hill, there's this stream, burbling along. Fish are jumping. It's wonderful, isn't it? Ha! Welcome to the real world. I'm gonna tell you, if this is what you're after, you got a few things ahead of you you need to be aware of. So let's get into it. Yeah, I wish that scenario that I just quoted was so simple, but Mark Twain was a person, he's credited with saying, buy land, they're not making any more of it. He's right. We all kind of know this, but unless someone goes out and discovers and markets and develops off-world land, Jeff Bezos, are you paying attention here? You're gonna have to deal with what's right here on Earth, and this little patch of heaven where I live and work is no different from anywhere else. People have been buying up land. There's always demand, because if you can't find what you want and you're very particular about where you want to be or what you want to live in, that sort of thing, there is land there, but you have to know a few things. Your agent has to know a few things if you don't want to take the time to figure it out, and most people don't. But here's things you need to be aware of. So I may be naming some things you don't even know that you don't know. I will tell you this, when I got into business, I was amazed at all the little details that you have to know to be able to buy land so that it can work for your purposes. So let's get to it. I'm working with a buyer right now. He lives in an apartment in a city nearby. He works from home, and if he wants to take a break from work, step outside and get some fresh air, well, he's really dealing with city sights and sounds. So he's listening to traffic going by. He's got concrete and asphalt out there, and it's not really what he wants, okay? And I can't say I blame him. Everybody likes to enjoy the great outdoors, and he likes to be in a place where he's got some space around him, some peace and quiet, and maybe a little bit of a view, okay? So he is resourceful and intrepid in that he is building his own tiny home, and not only is he doing it himself, he's got space in which to build it, but he's having it done by professionals, people who are licensed contractors who do plumbing, electrical, etc. I think he's probably swinging a hammer for some part of it. I'm speaking figuratively, but he's doing a lot of the work, pulling in the professionals where he needs to, and he's getting the county officials involved to inspect his work, their work, and say, yes, this is approved, you can move forward with this. So my hat's off to him. So I'm trying to help him find a piece of land. And these are some of the things that he runs into that anybody is going to be running into depending on what they want to do with land. So let me get into it here. Item number one, if you're not in a place where you have public water, public or community water, or sewer for that matter, you're going to have a well, and you're going to have a septic system. Now, to have a septic system, the land has to perk. And I've got another video on this channel where I go into great detail about that. But perc is just short for percolation, which is really just a fancy word that says how quickly does the water in the septic system percolate out into the soil. So when you flush the toilet, take a shower, do your laundry, you're shocking the system with a certain volume of water there that then has to be absorbed over time. And you want to make sure that the patch of ground that you're calling heaven will take this away so that you don't have to think about it, you're not reminded of it, it just does its job. So soil evaluation, soil studies, percolation, it's got to do that. If you've got public sewer or public water, that's not an issue. But again, for most people who want to be out in the country, you're dealing with these systems. the county, usually it's around here is the health department for the county is going to issue the permits for a well. They're going to tell you where it needs to go, and a soil evaluator will give a proposed location for that septic system. The county approves that, issues a permit, good for a certain length of time, so that you can have it installed as part of your home construction. All right, second issue, and I run into this one a lot. What is your access to this lot? Is it going to be off the public road? Is it going to be down a private road? Is it a driveway just for yours? Is it a shared road? Is it paved? Is it gravel? Is it just a couple of muddy ruts going through the woods? I mean, we've seen all this kind of stuff. Maybe there is no road. Maybe you're right there on the paved road, but here's a wall of trees, there's a ditch, there's no road into it. Someone's going to have to get in there and cut that, make you a road, that sort of thing, if you're going to be building there. The builders in the area, I know of several that they will acquire the land and they will do all this. They do what's called the site work, which is prep it with the road, clear the trees and brush and whatnot out so there's enough space to put the house up. They'll get all the permits that are required by the municipality in which the property is located. This is what they do. But be aware that if you're thinking about doing any part of this yourself, that you're going to be dealing with the county or the city planning and zoning departments for this sort of thing. And let me back up a moment and say that what I'm talking about right now is for people who want to be out in the country. They're not talking about I'm building on a city lot. A lot of this will apply though if you're doing that. Some of it doesn't, but I'm gearing this talk toward being out in the country. There are no service facilities other than what you can bring there. So keep that in mind. Anyway, getting back to roads, there's the physical access and then there's legal access. So what's there physically, and then especially when you get into private roads, whether it's a driveway, we call them easements or a right-of-way. Usually a right-of-way is in a deed that goes with the property. It's not counted as part of the land, it's just access that is recorded. An easement may or may not be recorded. I'm here to tell you that if you do have an easement or need one, you should have it recorded, because ones that aren't prescriptive easements are considered ones that have been in use. Everybody knows about it. You've got the legal right to it, but people still run into issues with these. So if you can get it in writing and recorded in the courthouse records, you want to go that route, definitely. And if you are going to build a house on a piece of property that hasn't been built on before, there's a road back there, maybe that road serves more than one property. What I'm running into, what a lot of us are seeing these days, and this started a couple of years ago, is the rural counties here, well, all the counties really, have started to adopt Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT, standards for the roads, and those standards increase and grow depending on how many properties or how many houses each private road has to serve. Reason being is that for emergency services to get down that road and handle a fire or handle a medical emergency for someone, they want to be able to take their vehicles down there, which, trust me, they're getting bigger and bigger over time, not smaller, because more and more equipment's needed. But they need to be able to get down there, they need to be able to turn around and get back out without getting stuck. So what you're seeing counties do is adopting those VDOT standards, and if you have a dirt road and now all of a sudden it's serving 5 or 6 lots that have or will have houses on them, trust me, the county is going to be applying those standards, and that's going to affect your cost and the time to get the road up to snuff. If you don't, and the county doesn't approve it, you can't build. And if you have built and haven't gotten approval, you can't live in it. So keep that in mind. You definitely want to go out and look at this land, because not only are the road surface and the width and all that of concern, but how steep is it? Either going uphill or downhill. Do you need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get in and out? I mean, I've seen some places that, the descriptions sound wonderful, the pictures are great, and then when you get there, you're on a grade like this. And that can be a problem for certain vehicles. One thing we do run into is, depending on the zoning, and you've got all different kinds. Usually the big ones around here are agricultural, which is minimum restrictions on how you can use land. But there's agricultural, there's residential, there's commercial and industrial, and if you're looking to build a house, you're not likely you're going to be able to do it there. You won't get permission. But the lot has to meet a certain minimum size. Now, if you're out in the county, again, it varies from county to county. I know in Louisa County, close by, 1.5 acres. For me personally, I wonder how they get a well and a septic system and a house in there on 1.5 acres and meet the requirements for separation distances, setbacks from the road and all that. But that's Louisa County, 1.5 acres. Other counties have a 2-acre minimum. If you go to, I think it is Rappahannock County, in some areas, their minimum is 25 acres. Now, these can change if you're in an established neighborhood, okay? That was recorded as such with the county. You might be able to get by with as little as 1/10 of an acre. It all depends on what the zoning ordinance says, what the comprehensive plan is for the county. They'll have different overlays and just a bunch of details. My best advice is you look up the number for planning and zoning and say, I'm looking at this lot, and they're going to ask you what's the tax map parcel. So you give them that number, they'll look it up, and they'll be happy to tell you, yes, you can build there, or no, you can't, or here's the restrictions you're going to run into. So it's worthwhile finding out, where those offices are, getting those numbers, and talking to someone before you move forward, spend money on inspections and this, that, and the other. There are conservation zonings, and their definitions are going to differ from one county to the next. So you definitely want to call planning and zoning. Sometimes they're called community development. I think in Louisa County they go by that name. But if you say planning and zoning, they'll know what you're talking about. This is a big one. Surveys. Is there one? How old is it? When was it done? Who did it? Was it recorded? Has it been updated? A lot of times I see surveys, I get handed a survey by a listing agent, or if I'm representing the seller, I've been given one. The latest one I was given was done back in 1975. And I'll just tell you that how surveys were done then and how they're done now are different. There's a whole lot more information that's put into them now because we have the technology to develop that information and include it. So the more of this you have, the better. And the important thing is if you have it recorded, then that is information that doesn't get challenged, because if someone did a survey and they might have even put a stamp on it, but it was never recorded, it's not in the courthouse, it doesn't carry as much weight, it doesn't have as much force as you may need it to have as you move forward, depending on what your purposes are with that land. So keep that in mind. You may, as a buyer, have to have the survey done yourself, on your own nickel. And this is something that if there are conditions associated with what's on the land and how it surveys out, you definitely want to have that included in your offer, because once it becomes a contract, you're bound by the terms of it. So is the seller. And you want to make sure that you're covered so that you can determine, is this going to work for me as I move forward? Now, some pieces of land, you just have a deed. Others, you have what are called restrictive covenants. And restrictive covenants would be a separate document, but they're also recorded in the same courthouse with the deed. And typically restrictive covenants go with subdivisions or neighborhoods, because let's say Farmer Brown takes his 200 acres and carves it up into 5-acre lots and has it surveyed as such and starts selling those lots off. He may decide before he starts selling them off that he wants to put restrictive covenants in there, which are nothing more than, it's a document that says, if you're going to buy this 5 acres, any of these, this is how you can use the land, this is how you are not allowed to use the land. And this has the force of law just like the deed does. So you want to make sure, are there restrictive covenants or not? And if there are, get your hands on that. Again, if you're not sure, this looks like a great piece of property and it's going to do everything you want it to do, make sure you put that in a contract to say conditioned on no restrictive covenants or a review of the restrictive covenants. There's going to be time limits on how much time you can take to review all this and make sure. But again, you want to know, is it there, is it not there? That's part of the research that goes into determining whether this is right for you or not, but you want to check into that. In addition, over and above restrictive covenants, you can have property owners associations, also known as homeowners associations, and this would be a group that actually manages the neighborhood or the subdivision, the development, and they would have their own sets of rules. Also, they would have you would be paying dues. You would be paying occasional assessments for upgrades or any shortfalls. There's a whole lot of rules that govern HOAs and POAs. Virginia law allows a buyer to request the disclosure package and have at least 3 or more days to review that before moving forward, because these kinds of situations can get very restrictive and you want to make sure you know what your rights are before you move forward with that. So again, that's homeowners associations, property owners associations, management companies that run them. The other thing to remember about them is a lot of times I'll see a piece of land or a house that's being sold, that's being listed for sale, and it says it's in an HOA, when really it's not. There might be a set of restrictive covenants and the neighbors have all gotten together and said, you know, we're going to collect $50 a year and have a picnic, or we're going to collect $100 a year and make sure the roads get graded and the gravel gets added when we, have potholes and that sort of thing. They can act like HOAs, but unless they're registered as that type of community and pay the fees with the Commonwealth of Virginia, they, from a legal standpoint, I would just check into that. So be aware that there's HOAs with a capital H, and then there's HOAs with a small h. Again, do your research, do your due diligence, and make sure you don't get caught out by something like that. I also mentioned road maintenance agreements. There may be a verbal one. There might even be something in writing, but if it's not recorded, that's going to have to be done before the loan can be approved. So again, another one of those niggling little points, but be aware it can catch you out if you get right up to the day of close and then they say, hey, we didn't get this road maintenance agreement, and your deal falls apart at the last minute. Well, nobody likes to be in that situation. And there's one more thing. It's called land use, and this is for rural property, farm property. You can get a break on your taxes depending on how the land is used. So if it meets certain criteria, and this varies from county to county, if it's being actively farmed, that typically is in land use. And all that they do is the county will assess the property at a certain value, and then when you say land use, they'll downgrade the valuation to a lesser amount. The tax rate still gets applied, that doesn't change, but since the property for land use, what they call a land use value, is lower, you get taxed at a lower rate. This is great for farmers. In some counties, if you have trees and intend to harvest them, they will allow you land use on that. Some other counties, not so much, but this is something that you have to renew every year. And when you look at a standard purchase contract, there's going to be a paragraph in there that talks about land use, and when the property changes hands, who will be responsible for paying the back taxes if the property is going to be taken out of land use. So another little thing to be aware of right there when you're looking at buying land. Conservation easements. An easement is just anything that restricts how land can be used, and it lies over top. Usually it benefits either an adjoining landowner, or in the case of a conservation easement, it's you give up the ability to use the land in certain ways in exchange for tax relief. I'm not going to go into any great detail on conservation easements. There are many different organizations that issue them. I'm going to say, watch my other video on it. There's plenty on the internet and YouTube about how they work. But if you're buying a piece of land with a conservation easement, typically that's going to continue with it. So whatever restrictions a seller agreed to when he put it under conservation easement, more than likely, when I say more than likely, I'm going to say 99% chance that you're going to have to go with those same restrictions unless you want to pay some huge amount of money in taxes or compensation to take it out of land use. Again, better research it. Your mileage may vary, so just be aware. Ask the question, is there a conservation easement? Now, again, getting back to my buyer who's building his tiny home and just is looking for a couple of acres to set it on, we were looking at some larger parcels that have division rights. And again, someone had spoken with the county, and the county had said, yes, you've got this 40 acres here, and you can cut it up into 11 different parcels per the zoning ordinance in the county. So if you're looking at something like that, now we're talking development. And that's a topic for an entirely different video. I may get into that in the near future. It'll take a while to develop that one. But again, be aware of that. And if you're interested in it, put a comment down in the show notes and I'll get back to you. We'll have a video on that and you'll see that in the near future. Anyway, those are all the things. If you're looking for that piece of land that is just going to be that little slice of heaven that you've been after, make sure that it doesn't turn into hell for you by keeping these things in mind. Hope you got something out of this. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Appreciate you sticking around till the end. And until next time,